Okay, so last time we left with a puzzle that the education system doesn't necessarily fulfill the surface function we see. We said, what purpose does it serve? If it doesn't give us the skills we need for a job every day, what does the system do? At the same time, if it doesn't increase our social mobility, we recall social mobility means moving from one class position to another, what does the system do? What is the purpose of the education system? We talked last time as well about the education gospel. This is the idea that getting a higher education and getting an education in general is a good moral thing to do. You will be a better person if you do this, and people should do this. Should, good, these are moral statements. The education gospel has clearly taken hold in our country when we look at educational attainment. Since the 1990s, both of these charts show us that more and more people are getting higher degrees. The chart on the left shows us the different streams, if you will, of educational attainment. Notice particularly the blue and the purple segments, as well as the green. Notice that these are wider on the right side than they are on the left in 1992. What that means is more of a larger percent or portion of the population is getting those higher degrees. We might also know that the red line narrows, meaning that fewer people are just achieving high school. This information is reflected as well in the chart on the right. The red lines showing us 2014 educational achievement, the blue line showing us 1991. Look at high school and less than high school. The blue line is taller there, meaning in 1991, more people just got high school or even less. In every other category, the red line is a little higher, showing us the percentage of people who get some college, associate, bachelor's, or even beyond has gone up. So we've learned the education gospel. We know we should go to college. But does it always serve the function we think it does? This chart is very revealing. What it shows is that in each one of these little charts, the word escapes my mind, as we go from the left side to the right side, we see income going up. That's what's on the bottom, or the x-axis. 50,000, 100,000, 150, up to 200,000. Now, in the chart on the left, we see someone whose father has a college degree, and on the right, someone whose father does not. So, if we look at these comparatively, what these show us is that even for someone who is on the poorer side, but their father has a degree, they're much more likely to get an associate's or a bachelor's degree. Look at that thick orange line. Look at the right side of the chart of the person whose father has a degree. Notice the yellow and the orange take up the entire side of those with $200,000. That means nobody just gets a high school degree at that income level and that education level. Their parents have a degree. Notice on the other chart, the father who has no degree, it's still a large proportion who fit in that red line. Notice in the chart whose father has a degree that the black section of less than high school is almost non-existent for everyone, poor or rich. What this is showing us, and we would see something similar for mother has a degree, is that while money is important, always, that parental education is crucial too. So in other words, you're more likely to succeed in college if your parents went to college. Part of what this tells us is that socioeconomic status is transmitted from generation to generation. In other words, if you're born into a poor family, you're more likely to be stuck there, particularly if your family doesn't have higher education levels. And so this begs the question, why? Why does this status, this class status, transmit from generation to generation? There's a couple ways in which this is done. Particularly in the public education system, resources or money matters. So if you are in a school that has more funding, which are typically in richer neighborhoods, because keep in mind, all public schools are funded by property taxes. If you have fancier houses and richer people, the property taxes will be higher, meaning that there is more money going to schools. More money means that there's more stuff for kids. They can get new computers, they can get new textbooks, they can hire good teachers. They can fund a band, they can fund a football team. Resources are crucially important. Not only just for the stuff the kids have, but for the way the kids feel about themselves. Often when students have teachers who don't care, old textbooks, broken down facilities, they get the message that nobody cares about me. Maybe this doesn't even matter. Education isn't important. Networks are also important. What this means is that who you know matters. Now, that's an age-old atom. Atom? That's not the right word at all. Whatever. It's an age-old thingy that people say. And it's true. But if you go to school with people who do well and are well off, you're more likely to be friends with them, to know them after school, and this is likely to increase your opportunities. You can get more connections to good jobs, references. You know who to talk to, who to contact. So social networks are important. If you go to one of those fancy private schools up in Connecticut, you might be going to school with the kids of George Bush or Hillary Clinton. So those are important people to know. They have tons of money and they run the country. Networks matter. Expectations are often raised as well. Expectations of the students around us can often encourage our own expectations. Again, what this means is that what we see is that students who have lower expectations, maybe I don't really want to go to college, or I'm just going to go to the local community college, that's fine. But if they move to a school with students who have more funding, who set their goals higher, they think not just community college, but maybe I'm going to go to Emory, that big fancy school, or UGA. Well, if I see everyone around me thinking that way, I start to think that way. I think maybe I could do that too if they can do it. I'm getting good grades and they're getting good grades. Maybe I can achieve at the same level. So our expectations for ourselves are often reflected by those around us. On the flip side, if the people around us don't give a crap, we learn to not give a crap either. So what does public education do? It serves to transmit authority structures. Most of what we're learning in public education is how to be a good little worker. We learn to show up on time. We learn the day is divided up into particular segments. There's a time for lunch, time for X, a time for Y. We learn to obey the clock, or at least some of us do. Most of my students, well, that's a different story. We learn to obey authority. We know that there is a hierarchy. We know that just like in a corporation, there are bosses that we go to. And if we don't go to one boss, we have to go to their boss. All of this is teaching us how to be a good little worker in the capitalist workplace. Moreover, public education reinforces existing class inequalities through all those mechanisms we talked about. It doesn't help us get out of poverty. It doesn't help us create social mobility. It actually serves the purpose of keeping us in place. Many students who are first generation, for example, fail out of school or drop out because they get to school, they're overwhelmed. They don't know how to survive in college because their parents never went. They were never prepared by their school. So it actually serves to keep people where they are. It doesn't help people get out of where they are. This isn't to say that the returns to getting a degree aren't important. They are. You will get more money if you get a higher degree, but there's some real barriers to getting there. This should also make us aware of policies. There are policies that can help those students who struggle the most. But does our education system provide them?